Welcome to Critical DMG, a podcast about two best friends who might have grown up but never grew out of their love for the Game Boy. We will be playing and reviewing every North American title released on Nintendo's original handheld console. This is episode 37. I'm Tony, and does this game only double our dragons, or does it also double our fun?
Ooh. And I'm Jeff, and I guess name drop already, but yeah, this week we are talking about Double Dragon. So, Tony, your immediate opinion on this game. Should someone boot this up on their Game Boy?
Oh, yes, but I'm gonna have to add some things as we go.
Okay. So to me, this one was close, not necessarily on the fence, but it's a no for me.
Okay, I feel that, yeah.
And we'll get into why that is a little bit further on in the episode. Before we do that, can you give us a back of the box read?
I sure can. The front of the box, because this is a game by Trade West, brought to the US by Trade West, I believe we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
But right on the front of the box, it just says, "We put you in the action, Trade West." So that's, I think, the first time we've seen like any of the company stuff on the front of the box this time.
Yeah, definitely we've seen, the logos and things like that, but I think this is the first that I've seen, at least, that has the like a slogan or anything like that. So maybe we're wrong. If we are, let us know, but I think I agree with that.
It's on the back too, but it was just funny that it's on the front. Okay, back of the box, Double Dragon. Right at the top is a quote from GamePro magazine, one of the most popular home video games of all time. And then underneath that is the back proper. It says, "New Double Dragon for Game Boy lets you get into the video action wherever you go. All the fast-paced ninja fighting excitement of the original Double Dragon for NES now goes as far as your imagination can take it. Help Billy fight his way through the slums, factories, and wooded outskirts of the city to rescue his girlfriend, Marian, who has been kidnapped by the mysterious Shadow Boss's deadly Black Warriors."
I don't know if I would call this ninja per se, but...
Yeah, I don't get the ninja part. I don't think there's any ninjas in here at all.
No, but, I guess like kung fu-y, martial arty, so whatever. Released in August of 1990. As we've mentioned, Trade West was the holder of the license in the US, originally developed by Technos in Japan. It is kind of a port from the 1987 arcade game, but I guess the back of the box kind of hit on it. That was ported to the NES first in 1988, and I guess there were some changes to the original arcade game in that port. And then this is kind of a port from the NES to the Game Boy, so, a little bit of maybe like telephone there, things changing a little bit. But yeah, that's pretty much the lineage of how this one went.
Double the dragons, double the port, obviously. But that's all I really have for the background. Is there anything else you want to bring up for the background for this one, or do you want to just go ahead and dive into the mechanics? I am not extremely well versed in Double Dragon. I have definitely played some of the Double Dragons games before, including the one on the Nintendo, so I was very curious to see how it was going to translate here on the Game Boy. I don't know that I have a whole lot else to say. This one is definitely, it when you see it.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen any kind of scrolling beat 'em up game, this is exactly that. And one of the oldest and original ones to do it, so I think that I'm ready to just talk about the one that we got here on the Game Boy.
All right, let's do it. So, as we've already said a couple times, this is a side-scrolling beat-em-up. Probably played or seen something like it, but this is kind of like one of the OG side-scrolling beat-em-ups, we'll say. Your goal is, to save your girlfriend, Marian, from the Black Warrior street gang, because, that's a cool name for your street gang. Controls, your D-pad moves you around, A punches, B kicks, pressing A and B together will do a jump kick.
What?
There are kind of some other things that you can do, like moves and stuff like that, but broadly, that's the mechanics, relatively simple. Tony, of the the 4 levels, how far did you get? Did you save Marian from the shadow boss, or what was your gameplay experience like?
I played in a couple different sessions because the first time around, I got my butt completely handed to me by the first boss.
Yes.
And I was like, surely something is wrong. I am missing something. Like, is there maybe an attack that I am not knowing how to do or something like that? So I perused the manual just to make sure that I, had figured everything out pretty well. And I had gotten all the buttons and the combos and everything. But no, it just turns out that particular enemy, that would be the Abobo, the like big muscly guy. Well, I guess they're all kind of big muscly guys. The largest of the muscly guys in this game. It just turns out that enemy in particular really sucks to deal with, and you kind of have to cheese your way through fights with him. So once I figured that out, I did much better, and I made it all the way to the 3rd mission.
Okay.
Before I encountered my second problem, which we can get into in a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I had a very similar experience.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of blew through the first part of the first stage, and then got to Abobo, got wrecked. Had to go back through the first bit of the first stage.
Yep.
Got wrecked again. So I was kind of like, okay, I had kind of the same thought you had. I'm obviously missing something.
Right.
I had not figured out the jump kick. So when I read that in the manual, I was like, oh, obviously this is the key. It was not. It was not the key at all.
I thought the same thing.
So I did eventually get past that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really still know how to fight them properly or how to beat them consistently. I just kind of managed to do it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you are kind of supposed to come at them at an angle.
Yes, I was going to say, do you want me to tell you? Because there is 100% a correct way to go about it, and it's to come at them from the top angle.
Yeah, and this is probably just a skill issue on my part, because I did watch a couple speedruns and stuff like that. They seem to be very much more consistent than I was.
Uh-huh.
So, I'm willing to accept a little bit of a skill issue, but just even once I knew, okay, I think this is what you're supposed to do, it felt extremely inconsistent to me.
Uh-huh.
And I got to level 3, got to the end of it where you have to fight another one, and I lost and I gave up because I was like, I'm done with that.
I do want to talk about the mission 3 thing, because that is also where I stopped, but for a different reason. Before getting into that, though, I do want to say, even knowing how to tackle the Abobo enemy, because it's the boss of the first level, but it's not actually a boss in other levels necessarily. It's just a stronger enemy type.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing how to deal with that enemy type just by, coming in from a top angle and always focusing the punch combo because it gets a good knockback or whatever. I was not able to do it super consistently, and even trying to do that particular enemy is equipped with just obscene reach on some of his attacks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what makes it so frustrating, because basically all of the rest of the enemies are pushovers.
Yes.
Unless you get swarmed or one of them gets a good hit on you from a distance with an object or a weapon or something, you can pretty much take most of them with relative ease, especially considering that if you are in the middle of fighting one enemy, you can do a backward elbow to an enemy creeping up on you from behind. So you're really never defenseless. You're almost dancing through all of the enemies up to the Abobo boss, and it just stops you completely in your tracks if you don't know what you're doing, because none of your attacks get anywhere close to reaching, and he can just reach out and strangle you or whatever.
Yeah.
Over and over and over again with no iframes or anything in between. So it's a real roadblock if you are completely unsuspecting.
Yeah.
You can figure a way out of it, but it doesn't feel good to do that. It just feels like taking advantage of bad collisions or something.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me to, I guess, maybe 2 points that really lowered this game, in my opinion.
Oh, sure.
You're 100% correct. The first level is a breeze. And
Yes.
honestly, most of the normal enemies are extremely easy.
Yes.
More of like a waste of time than anything.
I wouldn't go that far.
You have to defeat them in order to progress in the map. So it's not like you can just ignore them completely. But yeah, you really just mash A or B or whatever attack you want to do. You just do that, and the chances of losing is very low, or even the chances of getting hit is very low, because as you start getting hit or as you hit the enemy, it kind of like stun locks them. You just start a hit combo and they can't do anything.
Okay, hold on though. All right. Before we go any farther, I need to ask directly, do you like beat 'em up games? Because like fighting games before, I love these kinds of games, and it sounds like you kind of don't.
I would say they are not my favorite type of game. I usually will not seek out a beat 'em up game.
Okay.
But I don't mind them. There are some that I've played that I've quite liked, and there are some others that I really don't like. I would say they're more like middle of the road for me.
Okay. I could tell from the way that you were describing things that I don't have a problem with, that this is maybe not necessarily a game genre that you gel with or seek out as much. I like these kinds of games. Like I like fighting games. So the button combos to do your attacks and, picking up the weapons and having to worry about where the enemies are coming from and their attack patterns and things, I like all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So hearing you say, oh, well, you're just mashing the button to lock the enemy into an attack combo and then you're done with them, like, yeah, you are. Exactly. That's what I want. Because one of the things that I was keeping track of as I was going was, how much would an enemy need to be knocked out?
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing a combo on one of the generic goons, I think they call them Williams in the manual.
Yeah, I think so.
They can be dispatched in like 2 A presses and 2 B presses, like 2 punches and 2 kicks as a combo.
Mm-hmm.
Lays one out every time. They will not get back up. They fade away. And knowing that, you can kind of juggle the different attacks to figure out whether you're going to dispatch the enemy quickly, or you could take an enemy and throw it over your shoulder into another enemy or something behind you, which was really cool. You can hold enemies in place if you want to, like, kick them with your knee or whatever. Like, the combo options are really many and varied. The fact that they were able to put all of them here in the Game Boy, I really appreciated. So I think that it may be just 2 paths lay before us, and I'm going down the other one.
One of my favorite moments while playing this is there was an enemy that was jumping over, a gap to get to me, and I threw another enemy back at them, and both of them just fell down the gap. And I was like, oh, yay.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said. I think all of that stuff is well and good, but when you have to do all of that stuff to get back to try to fight the boss again, it starts becoming a lot more of, in my opinion, a chore than this is fun gameplay. You go through the first level. It's relatively easy. Yeah, you can experiment, and it's fun for a little bit. You get to the boss, you just get rinsed. You start from the beginning because you can't, save or anything like that unless you're using save states.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do all of that again, which is very low difficulty, to then get back to the boss to try to figure out how to do the boss again. Anytime you have like a 2, 3, 4 minute run back for a boss, that is kind of like a sticking point for me, at least.
Yeah, it's very much a game of its era in the way that is designed.
Mm-hmm.
No checkpoints, no continue system, no passwords. Literally just, oh, you got hosed at this boss fight? Well, sorry, you got to do it all over again. Oh, you got a game over at mission 3? You got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you think of when you think of annoying continue systems or game over systems in games of this era.
And I think you've mentioned before that that's probably a tie over, or
yeah, it's on purpose.
Well, it's brought over because it was an arcade game.
Yeah.
You put in your quarter, you play. a lot of arcade games, one coin, one play, then you start from the beginning.
I don't know if this applies to the Double Dragon arcade game, but in some arcade games, you're putting a quarter in to start the game and play, but you are also putting quarters in to keep playing the game when you die.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you get to a hard part, you can just keep dumping quarters in and keep spawning a new guy. Whereas that's not even an option here. There's no credits, no continues, nothing. It's just, oh, you're done? Well, too bad.
I tried jamming a quarter into my Game Boy and it didn't work.
Yeah, I know. They would normally not recommend that, but sometimes you just got to try and figure something out. Not having something like that here, I understand with it only being 4 missions long, 4 stages, whatever, that they want to make sure that you are getting maximum playtime from the cartridge or whatever, but that sucks. I hate that. Coming at this from our 2026 lens, that is not really ever something that I'm going to be like, wow, I'm sure glad that this game has a really crappy game over and continue system or a non-existent one or whatever. So anyway, that's the last word on that.
I get it. I definitely understand it, but the difficulty spike didn't seem reasonable to me. It felt like everything was relatively easy, straightforward. This one enemy, again, I still kind of don't understand how to consistently beat them. And then you get to level 2 and the boss is like easy. The boss is just like any other boss.
Oh yeah, easy mode.
And then, mission 3, you run into a Bobo again as like a normal enemy. One of them you can just hit off a ledge. Okay, cool. But then it's at the end of the level too. And that one enemy is really what hurt the game for me, because the difficulty spike for that one enemy was so insanely high, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. Like, I totally agree with you. I'm not trying to argue that the Abobo enemy is not wildly overpowerful for what it is, not just in how much damage it's able to do to you with the combo attacks and stuff, but the insane reach and how annoying it is to try and consistently land your hits without getting hit back. I'm definitely on the same page with you there.
I'm interested to hear what your level 3, I guess, sticking point was, though.
Okay. My mission 3 sticking point is that as much as I loved beat 'em ups, and I loved the moment-to-moment like action and combat in this game, if I wanted to play a beat 'em up that let me jump, I would want it to have a dedicated jump button. The fact that your like jump is also your jump kick, which is like a Castlevania jump and like locks you into place and direction when you do it. Mission 3 sucked for me. As soon as you get to the area with the water, I literally could not go on anymore. Anybody watching the footage on YouTube, just get your popcorn out and get ready for a laugh, because I am just like falling in the water like a total fool between misjudging the distance on the jump and accidentally like inching too close and just like falling in because the collisions on the water or like the land that you're standing on are really bad. And then the fact that they put an enemy on the other side of one of the jumps that can just like hit you when you land and knock you into the water. Like it sucked. That was where I called it quits, because I tried a couple times to get through it and it wasn't happening. Like I did make the trek back from the start of the game, like all the way back through to mission 3, and I still died at that part and never saw anything past that. So that was where I decided to call it quits. The ladder climbing is fine. I think that that's fine and good. I like that it adds like some verticality to the game and that you can like knock enemies off of the building, the scaffolding or whatever. I even like the conveyor belts, like that section. I even thought that that was kind of a cute touch. No problems there. But actually making the game require you to do jumping across instant kill platforms, oh man. Total no sale on that for me. That is not what I was looking for.
That's fair. I do have in my notes just platforming sections ? So I agree.
Yeah.
It feels a little weird that they put them in.
It feels out of place.
I didn't have as much of an issue with it. I didn't mind it. It didn't feel great. And it, like you said, it felt out of place. But I didn't bounce off it quite as much as you did. So I did get past that. I did get to the end of level 3. And then, I had to fight another Abobo. And I died and game overed. And then I was like, you know what? I will watch the last level on YouTube. And that's what I did.
It's not that this kind of game can't have, like platforming stuff. Like I said, all of the rest of the things that they include here, I think are good. I like that there are sections of the different levels that are empty, to be able to throw enemies into, or ladders to climb and things. I like all those little touches. I just think that I wouldn't have even minded it so much if it wasn't instant death. Like if it was just like, oh, there's spikes down there and you take a hit and then you've got to jump back out. Even that would have been okay. But the fact that it's instant death, it's just annoying.
Yeah, it did feel bad because there are not a lot of extra lives. You start with the life you have and then 2 bonus.
Right.
When you get to 20,000 points, you get an extra life. But that only happens once per run, it seems. So,
right.
You get essentially 3 total extra lives. And that section specifically, I had just gotten my extra life, so I only had 1 extra life because I had used all the rest on Abobo. And when you get to that section, they spawn an enemy behind you, and you have to jump, and then there's an enemy in front of you. The enemy they spawn behind you has a bat. Some enemies come in with different weapons that you can knock out of their hands and then pick up and use.
And are fun to have. I'm glad they are there.
Yeah, agreed. The bat instantly knocks you back if you get hit with it or if you hit someone else with it. And the enemy just hit me with the bat and I instantly got knocked into the water and died. And I was like, well, that wasn't a great use of that extra life. But they definitely, I think, troll a little bit in that section.
Yeah.
Again, I didn't bounce off the platforming quite as much, but I also agree. It feels bad when you have a health bar and then you fall into some water and it's just like, oh, no, that's your life gone.
Yeah. If you do so good on your run up back to that point, you've got all your lives, you have a pretty full health bar, and then it's just like, oop, nope, you're in the water, gone. It never feels good, especially, they do have you jump across the areas on the high-rise building with the conveyor belts, but that doesn't feel nearly as bad here. So I guess maybe that's like the step up, like, oh, we taught you how to do it in this level, now we're going to make it really obnoxious in the next time. I don't want to harp on it too much. It really is just an annoyance. I'm sure I could figure it out eventually and move past it.
Yeah.
The throwing and swinging weapons was kind of my last thing that I wanted to mention, so I'm glad that you did already say something about that. I like them. I'm glad that they're there. Did you have a favorite weapon that you were able to use?
The bat was probably, I think, the most powerful, and it felt the best to use. But I did really like the knife that you just throw across the screen. I thought that was kind of fun. I would say one of those two. Probably the bat was the strongest, in my opinion.
I like that one of them is just a nondescript cardboard box.
Yeah.
I think that's a really fun thing to just throw that apparently just like cleans the clocks of anybody that it hits. I think that's really funny. And I also like that one of them is just a whip. I'm glad that those were there. They were all fun to use and added some more variety to the combat. I will say that they're kind of annoying sometimes because if you're like trying to combo an enemy and there's a weapon on the ground that they drop or something, then you'll automatically pick it up and start using it. And I don't necessarily want to do that all the time.
Yeah.
You only get so many swings or uses or whatever out of a weapon. So I would rather save it for a fresh enemy than accidentally pick it up and start wailing on an enemy that I've already halfway knocked out.
Is that how the weapons worked? I thought it was you kind of got them for a certain amount of time, and then once you progressed enough, they disappeared. It seemed to me that once you progressed the level a certain amount, they would disappear regardless of if you use them or not. So
Oh, maybe. Just from my perception as I was playing, it seemed like I was using them and then they would disappear, like you're saying, after a certain amount of the level had been beaten.
Mm-hmm.
But I was just correlating it with like, oh, I've used it all up.
Yeah.
Because that's how it usually works in a lot of beat 'em up games is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you'll pick up a weapon and it only has so many uses in it before it just is garbage.
Yeah.
You either get rid of it on your own or it just like disappears from your inventory or whatever. So it might be one way or the other, but either way, you don't get to have them forever, and you also don't get to necessarily carry them with you.
Mm-hmm.
Before the first boss fight in Mission 1, the enemies that are there have one of those nondescript cardboard boxes, and even if you don't use it against them, you can't bring it with you to the Abobo fight, which is really annoying. So
yeah, if you pick it up and bring it in, it just disappears, which is a little sad.
Yeah. That was it. That's, I think, all I have for the mechanical stuff. I think I'm ready for ad break time.
All right, me too. Let's do it.
Ad break.
Outlaws and ruffians have had it their way out in the Wild West for too long. But someone's coming to bring them to justice. And justice is colored green.
Kero Kero Cowboy is a brand new platformer for the Game Boy Color and Analog Pocket. Our faithful peacekeeper is a frog named Kero Kero, on a journey to wrangle the Wild West's most dangerous outlaws and bring peace to the wide open plains. With a sticky tongue and his trusty six-shooter, he'll face dastardly foes, perilous platforming, and intense shootouts across deserts, mines, mountains, trains, forests, and beyond. Kero Kero Cowboy by Metagame Mike. That's Kero Cowboy. Out now on Steam and itch.io.
So giddy up now, partner, and help Kero Kero take back the West.
You know, the original Game Boy might not have been internet connected, but we sure are. So if you'd like to reach out to us, you could find us on Blue Sky at criticaldmgpod.bsky.social, or you could email us at criticaldmgpod@gmail.com, and either of those will get to us faster than you would expect for people who are stuck on tech from the 1990s. And we're back.
Also, Bat. We could still use that one for this one.
I was gonna say, you could say "and we're bat." There was a baseball bat in this game. Good title music. I liked the double dragon background. I think that was really cool. Very well done.
Yeah, another like mostly black title screen. So
Yep. Good like negative coloring, negative space or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And the music at the start was pretty good. The rest of the music in the game, I liked intermittently, I guess we'll say.
Yeah, it was like I feel like it went a little too hard at certain times.
That's a good descriptor, yeah.
And I wouldn't say it was bad. You know, I think all of it was fine, but it definitely was not background music, I would say. It definitely felt like it was trying to be noticeable and definitely be there.
I don't have so much of a problem with that. Again, probably just like a genre expectation, maybe. Like, I don't mind it being a little over the top, like pulse pounding kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I will say I think the music track for level 3 is bad, and that has nothing to do with the fact that I bit the dust a bunch of times in that particular level. I just think that level's music was not great. There were some of the tunes that were just, not that I think that they went too hard, but I think that in trying to be as like exciting and dramatic or like tense maybe as they were, they really kind of got a little screechy.
Yes.
With the Game Boy speakers, and that was not pleasant to listen to.
Agreed. Yeah. I don't mind that they wanted to be heard, I guess is the best way to say it. Mm-hmm. Like they weren't just, like I said, background.
Sure.
The problem was they weren't quite good enough to, I think, demand that attention. And a lot of times, yeah, it was like these high pitch notes that were relatively repetitive that kind of took your attention away from the game, kind of like, what is going on with this music? And again, not bad per se, but also just didn't quite hit the way that I think it wanted to.
Yeah, and I don't know, like I said, I don't know enough about Double Dragon just like as a whole to say, whether or not these tracks that were in the Game Boy are also ported directly from the other games, like if these are supposed to be as close to one-to-one recreations of those songs as they can be, to compare, to be like, it sounded better in the XYZ version, like the NES version or whatever. But I do like a lot of the music here. I do think that it's good. I think that they, are really selling this like 80s back alley street tough action vibe that they're going for here. It's just that in some places, it's almost like they're trying to push the limits on instruments that just can't handle it.
Yeah.
Like if you were playing a song on an instrument that is maybe not in the greatest condition, and so even though you should be able to hit the notes that you want to, this particular piece of equipment can't necessarily do it. That's sort of what it feels like here.
I would agree.
Like the tracks are good for the most part,
but the limitations of the Game Boy audio just kind of makes it suffer.
Exactly.
I think that's a good way to say it. Audio aside, I think the visuals were pretty good. I think everything was relatively readable. I think, we had just talked about Paperboy, that port coming over and like the scale being kind of off.
Oof. Yeah.
I didn't feel anything like that in this one. Maybe some of the hitboxes were questionable or not super intuitive, but for the most part, I think visually it's good. Like the sprites are decent. It's readable.
Yep. Everything is very clear. All of the items that you can pick up make sense when you see them on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I think that a lot of the design in the background stuff is really cool. A lot of the things really pop in interesting ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like there were definitely multiple times where I found myself moving toward an element in the background of the game and trying to like punch it because of how like they had shaded it. It makes it stand out in a way that's like, oh, this is part of the scenery that maybe can be destroyed or something like that. So it's really, really a lot to look at sometimes in a very exciting and thematic way. I think that the levels are a good variety. You're going from these different locales that all look distinct.
Mm-hmm.
The enemy sprites are really well done here on the Game Boy, which of course leads me to what's your favorite sprite?
Oh, that's hard for this one. I think Abobo is the most recognizable or the most distinct.
Sure.
I kind of liked Chintai, I think is his name. He's the boss of level 2.
I don't remember if it was Chintai or Chintal. I don't remember if it was an L in the manual or not, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know why, but I think that might be my favorite.
Mine's Linda.
I could see that.
I love the Linda sprite. Biker shorts and leather top and marching down the street. I love the look on that sprite, and I think it was really cool that they had a good variety. For as short as the game is, there is a decent smattering of enemies here, especially considering that they don't ever throw too many of them at you at one time.
Mm-hmm.
A follow-up question to that is, what's your favorite attack animation?
Oh.
Because those are really smooth and well handled here too. So I'm curious to know, like, what's your favorite wheel to dish out a good hit on some of the enemies?
The bat is probably my favorite, hands down. It was like just the most fun to just like whack and then they, fly away.
Sure.
However, I would say my actual favorite animation is probably the spin kick.
Ooh, yeah.
I think you hit like B twice and they'll kick and then kind of jump and spin kick.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was my favorite.
I think my favorite is either the over the shoulder throw.
Okay.
Like it's so dynamic. And I love that the enemies actually do go flying and collide.
Mm-hmm.
But like they definitely could have not done that. They could have just had the one enemy take the hit. But I love that it actually is, makes the enemy into a projectile.
Yeah.
But I do also love the uppercut. They give it such a good like pose. and there's just enough oomph and like almost like an idle frame before it happens that I think they really sell the uppercut, even though it, there's not like any sort of effects or anything about it. I think that it does a really good job of kind of selling the solidness of that hit.
I would agree. And yeah, I think that is something that they do well that I hadn't quite thought of until I guess right now. You can kind of like feel the weight and kind of the gravity of all of the attacks that are happening.
Yeah.
And, that's something that a lot of games don't have. And I think, yeah, they did a very good job with it. Feels right. It feels good when you kind of uppercut someone. You kind of feel the impact, even though we're way before any sort of like rumble or anything like that.
Yeah, and the sound effects really sell it. There's lots of good crunching and thudding and things like that for all of the hits and the weapons. There's the dynamite, a good little explosion sound and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes together to really go a long way to make you feel the impact of the hits, and whether that's on you or on the enemies. I think that they do a good job here with that. And they even have the stun animation that the enemies take. Like when you start the combo on an enemy,
mm-hmm.
they go into like a bent over, stunned kind of state, and they don't recover immediately. They wait a little while before they recover, even after you stop your combo. And even that really sells what you're doing to these people. If you were punching someone repeatedly or like kicking them or whatever with all these action moves, they wouldn't just like stand up and just like dust themselves off and like get back to it immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And little touches like that really do go a long way for something like this, especially for something on the Game Boy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I do like the manual.
Oh, me too.
They have illustrations in the manual kind of showing all the different attacks and showing the different enemies and characters, and
yeah,
very, very Fist of the North Star.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I was literally I was like biting my tongue to not interrupt you and be like, very Fist of the North Star. They look ripped right out of Fist of the North Star's pages.
Mm-hmm. They're all good, and they show all the different attacks, and while it's relatively short, I think does a really good job of like illustrating those things. And
yes,
they translate, I think, well to the sprites that you see in game. You can kind of look at all of them and be like, oh yeah, it makes sense that this is, the person that they're depicting. So
yeah,
very good there, I think.
And they read exactly like what you should want them to be imagined as a player is fighting them on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
They show the Linda enemy in the manual with her like leather top and her biker shorts with her hat pulled down and wielding the whip, and that looks what the sprite in the game looks like.
Mm-hmm.
The William and the Lopar enemies, they look pretty much exactly like what you would think,
Yep.
Just like a street tough and like a jean jacket kind of a thing.
Abobo is noticeably bigger.
Yes, and he, compared to pretty much all of the rest of them, Abobo really looks like Fist of the North Star, like especially from the picture in the manual with him like pointing directly at the viewer, like
mm-hmm.
staring him down. Oh man, big Fist of the North Star vibes from that. I don't love the Abobo sprite in the game. I think his face is a little like lumpy.
I agree with that.
In a way that doesn't, completely match what they're depicting in the manual, but you can still connect the dots and it reads just fine. So yeah, the manual again goes a long way to kind of put you in the mindset of what this game is trying to do. It gives you just enough flavor from the pictures of the enemies, and they've got the pictures of all of the weapons that you can pick up and the background on the story and what's going on and all of your attacks and what you can do. They show those off. Like it's very solid.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very good manual for, the run of them that we have had. This one, pretty high marks.
Agreed.
I think that does it for me here in the aesthetics. How about you?
Exactly what I was about to say. So
same brain.
With that, I know I was just speaking very highly of a lot of the aesthetics and stuff like that. I think the big reason I'm a no is that difficulty spike that I was talking about. And again, if you want to comment, like, just get good.
Blah.
Like, I get it. I get that it's a bit of a skill issue.
Blah.
But at the same time, it's the delta between the difficulty of all the other enemies and Abobo that is my issue. If everything else was difficult and fun and, challenging to defeat, then okay, fine. But that's not the case. 99% of the enemies, in my opinion, are complete pushovers, and then you have this one enemy that requires a different skill set or just is more difficult. And to me, that's not fun, especially when it's a 2, 3, 4 minute run back to get to that part. Or, in the case of level 3, maybe like a 8 to 10 minute run back to get back to the end of level 3. So that's the big reason why I'm a no, is the gameplay got really old in those runbacks to this one boss that was difficult.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there are people that would say that 3 minutes, 8 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever worth of run back or something is nothing. Oh, that's so little time commitment or whatever. But I hate to break it to you, babes. That's not really how it is, IRL. Sometimes 15 minutes is a lot of time that you have to burn when you could be doing something else or playing the game that you are trying to enjoy or whatever. So you kind of have to slice it up and be like, well, the game is only X amount of minutes long to get through from start to finish. And if I have to continue spending half of that playing through the same section over and over again, then the percentage of the game that I am having to repeat kind of mindlessly is a lot larger than a game that you were spending X or Y hours to complete and having to do the same 8 to 10 minutes worth of run back every now and then. So
agreed.
It's all about perspective, and keep your comments to yourself.
And I mean, for the record, I do, and I know I've said this before, I do like challenging bosses. I do like having to learn and, be challenged by a boss.
Sure.
To me, this is not that at all.
Yeah, that's not what's happened here. Even though I said I was able to figure out what you're supposed to be doing and make it so that I didn't really have to struggle against the Abobo all that much, you still do.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't feel good to kind of like cheese the collisions on that. So yeah, you're not learning patterns and timing dodges or anything like that. You're just kind of like making sure that you are in the exact right position to hit them in such a way that they cannot hit you back.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I guess you can call that a strategy, but here to me, it doesn't really feel like one. So no, I totally get it. I totally understand why you would say this one came really close, and unfortunately for you, it's still no. I get it. I get that. I'm still going to say yes. I will say I really don't like the platforming stuff that they try to shoehorn in some of these areas. Some of it goes over well, or is at least inoffensive, but when it's bad and annoying, it's really bad and annoying.
That's fair.
That is my caveat. As someone who likes beat 'em up games and is excited to see this here, I definitely had trepidation in last episode where I was like, oh man, Double Dragon, how is a beat 'em up game going to show on the Game Boy? But I think that this is a perfectly serviceable first time out. And just like I have said about the sports games and other stuff before, I'm really just hoping for a better showing later on. I'm not like super mad about this one. So, final word on that is Tony says Double Dragon on the Game Boy is worth the batteries. But I really hope that even if it's not in a Double Dragon game necessarily, I do hope that we will see better beat 'em ups going down the line, because this like fighting games is a genre I do like. So if this was the starting point and I feel pretty solid about it, I just hope that it gets better from here.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I think that does it for the wrap up. So that means it is quiz time.
Quiz time.
So just over 80%, 81.8, so 82-ish. I've been doing all right. Last week, not quite as well, but we'll see how Double Dragon does.
I don't have anything funny to say about Double Dragon Quiz this time, unfortunately. So everybody listening, you'll just have to insert one in there for me. My cunning wit has been kidnapped by a street gang. Someone please save it. Ready for question 1.
Let's do it.
The game series that we know as Double Dragon was originally conceived as a sequel to the Japanese game Neketsu Koha Kunio-kun. Here in the US, we got that first game under the title Renegade, which was out in arcades in 1986. There are a lot of similarities between the Double Dragon game that we got and the Renegade game original, including things like attack combos and 8-directional movement, but there's something about the way Renegade handles its combat areas that was definitely changed when Double Dragon was made. What was it? A. The fights take place in single-screen arenas instead of a scrolling level. B. If enemies are knocked off screen, they don't come back. C. There are no bosses in Renegade's combat at all. Or D. The player can choose to walk off the screen and just go home.
Oh, there are multiple times I wish D was the answer.
Sorry, girlfriend, not today.
I'll come get you tomorrow. It's fine. I want to say that it is in single arenas. It feels counterintuitive to a side-scrolling thing, but I for whatever reason, I'm going to go with that. I don't have a good reason why, but that just makes sense to me.
They got to start somewhere, you know? The genre's got to start, it's got to get its trappings somewhere, and you're right, it is A.
Wow, let's go. That was a complete shot in the dark.
That's fine. Double Dragon and Renegade may both be known as belt scroller games, which we didn't cover this earlier on, so I'll just say here real quick. That means that they have the player move around on the screen using a faked Z-axis to imitate like the walking up and down and not just left and right, which means that your Y-axis is your ability to jump and still, you know, get some verticality as well. So even though they are both known as that type of game, Renegade locked the fights into single screens instead of doing the continuous level scrolling that Double Dragon does. And so you would be in the level that you were fighting in, enemies would show up and you would have to fight them, same as you do in Double Dragon. But the boss for that stage would just be kind of like loitering around in the background of the level. And after you took out enough of the minions, the boss would then join the fight. And you wouldn't actually have to clear the whole level. If you knocked the boss out, the other minions that were left would just like run away.
I mean, fair enough. That makes sense.
Right? So yeah, no scrolling screen in Renegade. But good job. First one down.
Let's go.
All right. On to question 2. It's been a while since we've had a question from the pages of the Game Player's Strategy Guide to Game Boy Games. Thankfully, the Summer 1990 Volume 1 has a rather extensive walkthrough of Double Dragon on the Game Boy. 5 pages cover sections from each of the game's 4 stages with screenshots and notations while providing some hints and tips along the way. But that's not the best part of reading these, obviously. Instead, I want to know which of these is an actual line of flavor text from the guide. Is it A, "This is no time to be a gentleman, pulverize Linda with your baseball bat"? B, 1, 2, 3, 4, give a Bobo a taste of his own medicine and watch him fade into the woodwork? C, just when you thought you were safe from natural hazards, this runaway boulder hurtles towards you? Or D, all of these are real?
Oh, they're all so bad.
Pulverize Linda with your baseball bat.
Yeah. But, you know, C was the only one that I actually liked, but I'm going to go with D, that they're all real, because I could see them all being very real.
Because of course they're all real. It is D. They are all real. All of those are lines found beneath screenshots from different areas of the game in this guide. The guide here also extols the strength of the 4-punch combo against the large Abobo enemy. So I'm glad to see that the strategy was the right move when I played, got to lock in that 4-punch combo from the top angle. They don't say anything about the top angle. That must be hidden knowledge, I guess. Though another thing they say is that it's better to try and knock them off a cliff whenever possible. So, Jeff, I guess you were on the right track there for some parts. Just like a universally solid tactic.
Right. All right, 2 for 2 so far. That's pretty good.
Okay, well, last one. Question 3. For this last question, let's test your memory of the game overall. And no peeking at your footage or mine for this question. Obviously, we know that you can pick up and wield weapons and other objects that can help you deal with the enemies in the game. But with so many weapons at your disposal as the levels go on, I want to know which ones you get first. So which of these 2 items are the first ones you're able to use against the enemies in the first stage of the game? Is it A, a knife and a rock? B, a baseball bat and an oil drum? C, a whip and a cardboard box? Or D, there aren't actually any weapon pickups until the second stage?
I'm pretty sure it's B. I know the bat is the first one you get, and I'm pretty sure the oil drum is the second. I just don't remember if it's in the first level or not. I think it is. I think it's in the first level. So I'm going to go with B. That's the bat and the drum.
B for baseball bat.
Ah, there you go. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to go with.
Good, you're right.
Let's go. I would say prior knowledge, but that's just playing the game. But still, prior knowledge.
No, I wasn't sure if you were going to have it off the top of the dome and be like, oh, I already remember. I know what it was. But it was an interesting question because I usually don't test you on things in the game directly from the game that we play.
Yeah, luckily I played this one pretty close to when we recorded. And so I have that memory pretty fresh. But 3 for 3, I'll take that.
Yep, 3 for 3. And just to make sure that I do refresh your memory, you get the baseball bat very early on. It's one of the first enemies you encounter is a William with a bat who drops it when you hit him. And then the oil drum you get soon after. Well, I mean, hopefully you do without getting it chucked at you by one of the Lopar enemies that's carrying it with him. And while a cardboard box is also in the first stage toward the end, which we talked about how you can't bring it into the boss fight with you.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
The other items don't make an appearance until later levels. So it's the bat and the oil drum and then the box. And that's pretty much it until you clear that first level and then you start seeing some of the other stuff.
Yeah, so that did put me just over 82%.
Yippee!
Moving in the right direction. But can you remind us what our listener question from last week was?
Yes, Penguin Wars. I talked about how it was sort of a deceptively long-lived game series. And in that episode, I had already talked about a few different versions of Penguin Wars or remakes and ports and things that had come around. But I wanted to know specifically about a version that came out in 2009 on a non-Game Boy handheld device. One that, if you were playing this version of Penguin Wars, you could play it with controls that were on the screen, that are kind of the ones that you would be using on a Game Boy, sort of, or it even had tilt sensor controls if you wanted to go that route. And I wanted to know what device it was on. Jeff, I think you said you might have had an idea.
I'm pretty sure it was mobile. I know I saw that they had released it on mobile. So that's going to be, I guess my guess is, a mobile device.
Look at you. You even get the listener question right. It is mobile. Yeah.
We're doing it.
Yep. Believe it or not, in 2009, ASCII released a version of Penguin Wars for iPhone and iPod. You would play by either pressing a set of L and R buttons at the bottom of the touch display, or you could use the tilt sensor that was built into the iPhone or iPod to move your character around. Throwing the ball was left up to either a tap of the screen or you could flick your device to make the ball throw.
That sounds horrible.
Which, as I'm sure we all know, is exactly how your device ends up on the floor. So I don't know how I would recommend that, but it was pretty funny to see.
All right. So what is the listener question for this week?
So for Double Dragon, spoiler alert, I guess, we will be getting plenty more Double Dragon action here on Critical DMG, with a total of 4 games in the series coming out for the Game Boy, and that includes this first one. For anyone who remembers playing or hearing about these games as they were coming out, the final of the 4 should probably come as no real surprise. But for anyone else, the Double Dragon guys get teamed up with a squad of mutant amphibians down the line, but probably not the ones you're thinking of. So, who is it? Jeff?
Yeah, I just looked it up on our schedule. I would have had no idea, though. But that is a...
Well, you can't tell.
I won't.
It's a long time coming, that's for sure.
That is for sure.
Thanks for listening to Critical DMG. If you would like to support us further, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/criticaldmgpod. Join us there for monthly newsletters and extra content. Otherwise, please leave a review wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe recommend us to your friends or anyone else you might think that would like the show. It really helps us out, and we appreciate it.
I think that brings us to the end of Double Dragon for now.
For now.
Like Tony said, we will revisit it multiple times. But for now, we are done. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And yeah, that segue actually works very nicely into what we're playing next week. Because next week, we are playing the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I'm excited.
Yeah, some other mutant amphibians that did not team up with the Double Dragon crew. I don't know if I've played this game before or not. I think I have, but I guess we'll find out.
I have not. I have played a lot of Ninja Turtles games in my time, but I have not played this one, and I am very curious to know if this is going to be side-scrolling action platformer Ninja Turtles, or if it's going to also be a beat-em-up, and we're going to have to directly compare it to this game we just played.
The one I remember is a beat-em-up, but
Yeah, most of the ones that I've played are beat-em-ups, so, like, I'm wondering if that's what it's going to be, because I know that there are, you know, more just, like, 2D side-scrolling ones that I've played as well. I believe one of the ones on the Nintendo is that, so it might be more like that one. You know, it might be more like a Batman the video game that we've had here on the show, but I'm very curious. I hope it's not a letdown.
Hopefully it isn't, but we will figure that out next week.
We sure will. All right, until then, bye, everybody.
Goodbye.